Our friends in the planning department at Chelmsford City Council have been busy little bees, poring over another application at Hamptons by Chelmsford Muslim Society. Also in this video, a new madrasa opens at Hamptons, and the arrival of a controversial new Imam. All of this coming up right now. Last year, the council refused an application for a lawful development certificate for existing use, which attempted to claim the building had been used as a place of worship for over 10 years and, as such, was immune from enforcement and wouldn't need planning permission. The council refused that application because it didn't provide any evidence of continuous use for worship and, besides, the building wasn't 10 years old. The recent application was for another lawful development certificate, but this time for proposed use. This type of application seeks confirmation that the uses of the building are lawful if they begun at the time of application, which is a bit confusing as it contained the same uses CMS previously claimed existed for over 10 years, like a creche, display of works of art, indoor sport, outdoor sport, and a public hall. Oh, and a mosque. The application also included a medical clinic that could be used for religious circumcisions, and the holding of funerals with a ghusl area next to the kitchen for ritual washing of dead bodies. Despite telling the council in their application that they had no plans for storage of dead bodies in the building, their fundraising leaflet suggests otherwise. Councils have a statutory 8 weeks to determine these applications, but clearly looking at a page and a half of bullet points through the council's rose-tinted glasses presented far greater challenge for the fragile planning officers who took 19 weeks to come to a decision. Now, I don't want to be too critical here because, once again, they've got the decision right and refused the application. The reason given for refusal is that the addition of funeral and body washing facilities and circumcisions would tip the balance of the building's use from a sports and community centre to a mosque. The internal alterations that they've already made don't require planning permission in themselves, but in their decision notice, the council have now sent a warning shot to CMS that such changes can be indicators of a change of use to the building. No shit. CMS have been quite happy to splash the cash on these alterations to create the mosque facilities. Meanwhile, the jewel in the crown of the sports centre that is the tennis section have to fundraise themselves to upgrade the court floodlights. It's clear from the decision notice that the council's view is that they're now right on the limit of what's permitted under the existing consent. Even that's based on their interpretation of the current religious use being limited, which we dispute. They're now way over that use that the council said needed planning permission back in 2020, a decision that the council appear terrified to uphold. If the use for worship really is that limited, it's hard to understand the need for the recent arrival of a new Imam, Sheikh Shams ad-Dahar. He is a very prominent figure in the Islamic community, but also a controversial one. In a 2017 Henry Jackson Society report, Shams ad-Dahar is described as an extremist who describes homosexuality as a vice among vices, and that it's the most logical thing for anyone to protest about, and that there's no yes or no answer to whether infidels should be killed.
There are people who are cross-dressing on the streets. There's men holding each other's hands, walking around the streets.
He's also very vocal on the teaching of LGBT in schools and on the role of women.
Usually career women only realize it when they eventually have children and they realize, oh, you know what? And smart career women give it up to have children. You should say sorry because you're not a mum. Because you're delaying that. Because the one thing that you would actually take fulfillment from, right?
The kind of woke onslaught, this crazy kind of normalization of LGBT and it being forced down our children's throats so that our children are forced to agree and accept and validate and so on and so forth, things that are basically kufr. So even now that I'm an imam in Chelmsford, one of the things that I bring kind of to the masjid as an imam is these kind of things. So I'm trying to incorporate these things into the madrasa curriculum as well as try to impart them to the adults and so on.
It's these fundamentalist views that modern society now not only tolerates, but protects. It's a woke ideology in itself that's seemingly filtered down through all levels of local government Shams Abdulhad's focus is on youth education. It's therefore no surprise that, no sooner had he arrived, he began reforming the madrasa at Hamptons. It's a use of the building for religious instruction that was previously only a one morning a week hire by an external organisation, but it's now become an academy that's owned by CMS, it's run by CMS, for 4 days a week at Hamptons, as Sheikh Shams seeks to impart his particular worldview on the youth of Chelmsford. From a planning perspective, it's a further demonstration of the incremental transformation of the building to a mosque, and one that wasn't even mentioned in their recent application. So, unfortunately, the council will now need to reassess the permitted uses of the building. So, what happens now? They could appeal the decision, but the reasons for refusal are strong, and the planning inspectorate would likely take a more neutral view on the planning merits of Hamptons than the little petals at the council. There's now only one way that CMS can get what they want at Hamptons, and that's by submission of a change of use planning application. It is all we've ever asked for here, and had they done this from the start, it would have saved both us and the council the time and expense in dealing with this issue. But now their plans are all out in the open, it's time for them to bring an end to this and do the right thing. And if they don't, well, we'll just carry on until that day comes.